Woman Jaker, my name is Kabina Crawford. I am from RMIT Mental Health Program, and I am here with the wonderful Joe Tungaraza. But before we get started, I'm going to do an acknowledgement of country. I am recording this video on Wurundjeri country of the Boomerang and Woiwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations. I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present, acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded, and that it always was and always will be Wurundjeri land. But I believe you were on Yaru land up in Broome, Joe. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, cool. So shout out to Yaru Mob as well. Beautiful country up there. I spent much time up there teaching with Joe. So it's great to see you again, Joe. Do you want to introduce yourself to our Certificate for Mental Health students, please?
Yes. My name is Joe, and yeah, I've been in Australia for roughly 27 years, effectively, but probably more than 30 years in and out. And yeah, so being here this long, I came as many migrants did, stayed in a country town for in South Australia, country town called Port Augusta.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
tiny
that
town.
was where I started, and then I moved to Adelaide, South Australia, and then Northern Territory, and ended up in Western Australia. But basically, my background is in community development. I did community development, political science first. I did political science and practiced community development specifically in a town called New Delhi in India for a few years, since 1993. And then, of course, I went and stayed in Scandinavia or Nordic countries. There as well, I did immerse myself in arts, community arts. And then when I moved to Australia, of course, I did arts to begin with, background in painting and stuff like that. So when I came to Australia, of course, I immersed myself in community development as well. Got involved myself in community art again, specifically for migrants and refugees. So we did some exhibitions and stuff like that in the early 2000s. And then I moved on to case management, so to speak, case management and project officer, because I did a master's degree at that time in community and international development. So I went more into that area of work, community development, and then into case work and case management and community projects with refugees at that time. And then, of course, I went and to study social work as well. Social work, I did master's of social work, particularly from Victoria University there. And then, of course, I worked a long time with young people as well, and ended up working as I did a stint mental health social work as well, at in a hospital setting. And then now I've been teaching at the with adults for roughly 16 years. So that is my sort of like working background. So I'll explain a little bit more as I go through, jack of all trades. But my experience of resettling or settling in Australia has been like many migrants. It's got ups and downs, and but I'm really grateful for the opportunities that came my way, or that I found. And yeah, so what else can I say? The apps. The
Mhm.
apps have been the opportunities to work with wonderful people, to participate in community, like most migrants. Usually we go out there and connect with the population that we have found in that particular place. I was lucky, like I said, hopping through different countries and different continents. We always want to immerse ourselves into into their local life. So being involved in arts, of course, and music and things like that. I met lots of people, particularly Australian, of English, Irish, European backgrounds. So I worked with them so well, and it has been wonderful. And the basic thing I can say is that you do the right thing, you work hard, and things open up, doors open, and yeah, resettlement like that is good. And of course, sometimes it can be hard because of the cultural change. I would say living in Europe prepared me a little bit, but Australia is a whole lot of different country. Um, in terms of dynamics and relationship that we form with people here. So back in Europe in the 90s, it there was a year of tolerance. There was something called Schengen Agreement, and by Schengen Agreement, basically, it was Fortress Europe. Some people termed it as a Fortress Europe. So migrants had a bit of hard time, and we're not many of them, many of us, particularly in the northern parts of Europe. Of course, England had a much more richer migrant culture. So the year of tolerance really was about um, to enable migrants to not to face different faces of racism. And in those days, it was sometimes even physical. A few people lost lives and things like that. It was pretty difficult, and you walk in pairs and even more and stuff like that in the nightlife and stuff like that. So when I moved to Australia, it was such a different thing. The only graffiti that we saw, it was not mainly targeting us at the time, people of African origin. It was much more. Remember in 1997, the big news was a one nation emergence of it. So you are in Australia and you see graffiti to aim towards different populations, and you just think like, oh, that re-traumatized me a little from other experiences. So, but basically, um, it was whole different because in Australia, it's not felt like a monoculture. So in other countries, say you go to a place like probably I'll just mention just for the sake of it. Say you go to Lithuania or Latvia, and you're not a Latvian or Lithuanian, and you don't speak the language, it's different, and the level is different. Here in Australia, it was much more accommodating, so to speak. And we had advantage of speaking English language at times. But sometimes you'd encounter things culturally that are so alien to the ways that I'm thinking or to the ways of thinking. And it would be like startling, like how could people think like that? And how could people do things in this or that manner? And those are the challenges, I think. in terms of adapting to different values and different way of thinking. I think those were the not downs, but hard lessons to learn, which I'm still learning up till today. We tend to forget sometimes, and then you're startled with something, and oh, okay, readjust again and learn from those lessons.
Yeah, so very rich experiences there. You mentioned earlier that you worked with migrant and refugee communities when you were in Adelaide. Can you talk us through, because obviously you've worked with a lot of people from different cultures to your own. What strategies do you use to make sure you are engaging respectfully with from people from different cultures? You may not know everything about their culture. How do you engage in a respectful way?
Of course, you're not prepared. You're not prepared for everything. I thought I knew so much. I thought, well, I've lived with people from Asian backgrounds since I was 1 year old or something. You know, I lived with Europeans since I was a little child, and I thought I knew everything. But those people that I lived with way back where I studied and all that, we had kindergarten teachers who were from a region of India called Goa. It was like a convent school. Some of the staff members, I did needlework with the nuns from Switzerland and all those kind of things. So I thought I knew so much about people, but when I moved out and you know I started to relearn how to communicate properly and respectfully. So some of the things you learn along the way. For us, if you're treating somebody respectfully, you lower your voice and you know you speak slower and probably sometimes not gaze at their eyes so much. And what I learned about Australia is that particularly for the people from European backgrounds is that sometimes can seem as not having confidence. And so you have to adapt yourself in the ways of communicating once you note or you notice that probably this person's communication preference is this. So you adapt and you respond to them accordingly. And sometimes it doesn't work, you learn a little bit more. But basically, respect will remain respect in a way that you don't use sometimes crack jokes that are ambiguous. Some people don't like jokes, every kind of joke. So how you break the ice, how you engage with people so that you can build rapport depends. But I tend to avoid using expletives as a norm, even though when I was working in Australia, everybody would talk like that, with
We love
all
our
the,
swearing in
we
Australia.
love our swearing and things like that. So I would try to avoid that and remain right there in the middle. So that way, and also it's just about teasing out. Say when I was working with Afghan people from Afghanistan, um, some of them like to be called Afghanistanis instead of Afghan. I'm not sure which one is the correct way to term a person. I quickly learned that I had to engage with the person that I'm used to, sort of to be a bridge. Otherwise, it was very hard to break into that community. So due to various reasons. So engaging with people respectfully, watch your words, and ask questions. Asking questions is very important. Is it okay with you? And really tease that out and know you know, if this is right or wrong things to say or do. So it takes time, but we get there.
Hmm.
Yeah, we get
Amazing.
there.
So just focus on respect, and like check for consent and check for people's preferences is how you do it, yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah, and small things. Some people are very shy. As a
mm,
mail worker, um, I remember forgetting, um, forgetting um, the social norms when to engage with certain populations, like male cannot engage with females and stuff like that. I'm just thinking, I'm a worker here. I can work with everybody, but
mm.
you learn pretty quick that people put a stop to that. So asking questions like, is it okay if you're working with me, or would you like another worker to work with
Mm.
you? And
Yeah, for
refer
some
it
cultures
accordingly.
they prefer working with their gender or the opposite gender. So yeah, it's one of those things where
Yeah,
asking questions is and never assuming you understand people's needs, I guess. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
amazing.
So,
Um, So you're Tanzanian, and Africa
mm,
is incredibly diverse. But if
mm.
people haven't worked with African populations before, do you have any recommendations for how to be culturally responsive and respectful?
um, similar things, similar
Hmm.
things. Sometimes don't get too frustrated. We have community events, maybe slotted for 3 p.m.
Hmm.
and you tend to turn there like 10 minutes before 3 or 15 minutes before that appointed hour,
Hmm.
and you end up waiting a little longer for people to turn up, particularly
Hmm.
in community events. And showing your frustration with that is kind of like, oh, people just think like probably you're too much sometimes. So things like that, they can make a joke like, you say it's 9 a.m. to meet, but what about is that gonna be 9 a.m. or what should I? Oh, yeah, 9 a.m. probably 9:30 somewhere there. Depends on the traffic, ha ha ha, and stuff like that. Make those accommodations. Working with African people, and not all of us. S- Probably now is much. So many years have passed. So, but
Mm, mm,
language issues, depending on English proficiency. Like I'm from just one part of Africa
mhm,
where I don't speak other languages
mhm,
from Africa. So it's important for me to make sure that we're on the same page when I work with somebody in terms of language. If it's difficult, um, I'm not sure about these days so much, but those days we used to have a particular funding to do with having translation and interpreters
mm,
um, on the phone, and I use them I use them very well at the time
mm,
in many appointments. So that was the key to try and engage with them, not imposing or being too intimidating because I'm speaking a different language. So showing respect, would that be, I think that would be respectful communication in a way that I'm making sure we understand each other.
mm,
And yeah, um, making sure that, understand those little nuances, intricacies that somebody is speaking low voice. Okay, you are confident, you know what you're talking about,
mm,
and take time to get that information from them, and not
mm,
saying that that was boring as. I mean, it's just another way of communication. It's different from yours, and probably yours is not the only yardstick. So
Amazing. So
that kind of adaptation, I think, adaptation. Yeah.
Amazing. So you are a mental health social worker, is that correct?
I worked as in that space. That was 2019 or so.
So do you have any
18, 19.
recommendations when you're working in a mental health context with diverse consumers? What do you do to make sure you're embedding reflective practice in your work? And could you take us and do a bit of an explanation of what reflective practice looks like in a mental health context?
To me at the time, it was very important because I was working with within the Kimberley region, that is in the northwest of Australia, and the population, almost the majority of the population that I worked with were within the, the the First Nations or Aboriginal people of Northwest Australia. So I did not, and through about 39 different language groups or communities originally. So it was very diverse in itself. So it was very important to work with a liaison officer, a male liaison officer for that matter. I think I was pretty lucky because I was an object of curiosity at the same time. So whenever I go visit places, sometimes you find people wanting to know more about me than me wanting to know more about their condition. So that was a good exchange. It broke down the barriers a little bit, like where are you from, what do you eat, and do you do fishing, and do you do this or that. So that was a point of point of engagement, like my tribe is this, my mother comes from this or that place, and they would tell me where their mother is coming from, their grandmother, and stuff like that. So that helped a little bit. But it was very, very important for us because some of the things, like I said, small things or some details that you think you know and you don't know. So that the local mental health worker who goes with you to the community, maybe 200 k's away, you go to visit a community, and you got about 5 or 6 people there to visit in a span of 2 hours, which you'll give them 15 minutes each, and it's so pressure once a week and all that due to the nature of things. You cannot stay there for days. So going with that person who can help you navigate the area, hopping from one house to the other, hopping from one house to the other, or finding a client under a tree somewhere. And that was very important to have that link, because otherwise, where do you start? I don't speak Creole. It's an English that is very fast to my ears. And also it incorporates lots of local words that are not used widely across Australia. So understanding those little those words and things like that, somebody who can be a bridge is I think it's is important because they help us settle in as workers, reduce that anxiety, and probably it does the same on the part of the client as well.
Amazing. So seek out cultural navigators if you're unsure, that they can help.
Correct. It's not, yeah, it's absolutely important.
Cool. So you mentioned earlier when you first arrived in Australia, Pauline Hanson was coming on the scene. There was some anti-immigration sentiment. You mentioned some like graffiti on walls targeting different ethnic populations and so forth. Um, Fast forward to now, like there is a lot of hysteria in the community around African migrants in particular.
Mm.
How do you have any comment on that as a member of the African diaspora? What impact does that anti-immigration sentiment, anti-African sentiment have on your community?
I think the different ways that it impacts on us. First of all, on my part, I understand that when somebody's dislocated
Mm-hmm.
from their stable, everybody would like to, I mean, most people would like to be, have a stable upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
go to the same school, no movement from, same household. You need that stability. Parents are there and all that kind of thing. So when, due to various reasons, maybe war, or so people move away from the war, stays a refugee camp for the best part of the childhood until they're 9, 10, and then they get moved to another country. And in the other country as well, because the refugee from their country to another country in the same continent is hard enough. Probably a parent has been lost, just the same. It's
Mm,
hard. And then moving to a different continent, different everything, it's
mm,
another dislocation. I'm trying to have a bit of understanding of where these young people are coming from. It's not an excuse, but it's just an understanding. Um, then you go to school, probably you face names or sometimes even just a cold attitude, exclusion of some sort. You'll
mm,
tend to go back to the places that you belong. You feel a
mm,
sense of belonging. So not having so much experience about life and everything, and for young people wanting to have a certain kind of reputation and things like
mm,
that, and that can escalate very quickly,
mm,
very quickly. So group dynamic, I mean, social dynamics of that nature, us against them, and even within the African communities, this family against that family and all that.
mm,
And young people have not had time to digest and really um, being stable.
mm,
That can escalate into very negative um, incidents.
mm,
So when that happens, what do we do about that? And unfortunately, it can be in the news.
mm,
It can be in the
mm,
news and it can be everywhere. I remember even at fatal incidents when I was working in South Australia with young people.
mm,
There was a very fatal incident right at the shopping mall. And then sometimes that can be used as, you see, we told you these guys are like that. And there's this sense of collective um, victimization. Just think
mm,
like, I didn't do it. Why should I cope with with all these attitudes towards me? You know. So sometimes when bad things happen um, with certain groups of people, not necessarily young, um, then everybody is sort of in the same boat. And that can
mm,
be hard on the community and every
mm,
individual. I'll move away from Australia. I remember back in the days, there was an HIV case, one guy, if you Google, you'll find him, had HIV when I was back in the Scandinavia, and he was very popular in the nightclubs, and with his build and everything. It was very popular with girls as well. And I think about 20-something girls came forward to say that he had unprotected sex with them. In total, it was like probably 50-something. And people were just amazed, like 50-something women coming forward to testify in the courts that he was busy with them, unprotected. And some of them, unfortunately, had contracted the virus. And it comes on the news. You go to in the train in the morning, and everybody's frowning, looking at you, because that particular person was American of African origins, or Black American, depends on how you want to call them. And you would endure that bad looks, bad stares, evil stares for weeks after that. And maybe somebody will be insulting you in a language that you don't even understand. And just think like, I didn't do that. So sometimes the community, when things happen like that, I remember in Victoria a few years ago, probably up to till now, there was this story about gangs on the news as well. So you can imagine how that would be interpreted by some people when you walk around the streets and things like that. And probably you have to cut off social media for some time, or maybe just don't go to the comments section, and that will be safe. But if you go to the comments section,
don't
then
ever open the comments section. Yeah.
If you go to the comments section, then probably you'll feel some kind of way.
So it's interesting that I have what some people refer to as white privilege, in that when you're explaining that there was a member of the community from an African background, did something, contributed to the spread of HIV, and everyone from that community was impacted by the behavior of that one individual. When a white person goes and does something, it isn't automatically associated to people of the same race. It's not, their ethnicity does not become part of the narrative. So one thing I have noticed is that people from culturally diverse backgrounds can experience discrimination because the media is focusing on a narrative of the negative behavior of particular sections of the community, and it impacts on everyone, regardless of their own individual behavior and so forth. So I've never had to experience that where someone who looks like me, sounds like me, has a similar background, does something bad, and everyone who looks like me and has my similar background is impacted by that. So that's an example of white privilege. And I think it's important to recognize that doesn't mean your life is not hard if you are white, but your race isn't one of the reasons why your life is hard when you're white. Whereas people who come from different backgrounds I imagine you've experienced some discrimination and barriers given like your cultural background, cultural and linguistic background. Do you think it has impacted on you negatively?
When an act is overt, when an act is explicit, it's on your face, in your face, that's an easy thing to call. But if it's not in your face, like somebody's not insulting you using negative terms, or using racial slurs or racial terms, when they do that, then it's very clear. it is very clear that this is due to race.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot guess the assumptions that people have in their own heads when they raise their eyes and they see a person who looks probably this or that way, different from them. So that's a very hard one to call. You can only guess that probably because there's an assumption if somebody did not grow up here or somebody's slightly different, then that's why the treatment is such. But it's one of those things that are very gray and hard to call. You can just, and then it's sort of like gaslighting. Am I paranoid here? Or is this the truth? Why would somebody think of this community or me in a certain way or treat me in a certain way? Well, they'll treat other people in a total what you think is a normal way of treating the person. So that one is very hard to call, and it requires sophistication in navigating it. So the advice would be probably leave and go for everything that every other person goes for, and which can be hard, but that's the only way. And yeah, so there are some incidents like that probably some people would face, and yeah, go out there and do the right thing, and there's no other way to be than be yourself. You know.
Absolutely. So we mentioned the comment sections before, like when you're on social media, you open a comment section, particularly around immigration, certain groups of immigrants and so forth, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, you open the comment section and the racism is there. So we know it exists in society, and it seems that you experience things that you're not sure to attribute to that racism because you know it's there. But you're saying that in a sense, sometimes it's easier when it's open and naked and obvious, because you can call it out, but it must be challenging and confusing to navigate in a community where you know this sort of stuff exists, and you have to like persevere in the face of that potential discrimination. So that's again, not something I've experienced. So
it's just
what can
recently there was a person killed a 17-year-old or 19-year-old or somebody in Bali. It was on the news. He was seeking sexual favors and ended up killing the girl and put them in the bag and stuff like that. He was caught. It was in the news everywhere. I'm an Australian guy. So I'm not sure if that incident would turn out hotel and villa owners and people on the street to say, where are you from? You're from Australia? You guys are killers, you see. I think tourism will continue as it is, and probably not everybody will be blamed for the murderer actions. That guy was a murderer, and people would think that guy was a pretty weird bloke, and probably that will be the end of it. And yeah, I'm not sure. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Because I know here in the Kimberley sometimes people talk a lot about French tourists. Oh, that's a French tourist.
Yeah.
So all the French people are termed as different from other tourists. So I don't know. It's one of those things.
Yeah, no, that's true. I do remember that about Broome, that people were very down on French tourists. But what can we do as members of the community if we see and experience racism towards migrant communities, culturally and linguistically diverse communities, any kind of minority community? What can we do as people who aren't experiencing that discrimination? What can we do to change the culture that we're in to make it more inclusive and more welcoming?
I, I I think one of the things is to have a conversation. You don't need to be aggressive at times if you want to ask people questions that eventually make the light bulb flick.
Mm,
You know, you've seen it. You might ask them, why did that guy do it? And
mm,
confront it. Ah, it is about this and this and that. Well, the characteristics of a gang are ABC. There's initiation, there's this, and usually it's for a certain advantage, maybe making money, or, using violence,
mm,
selling drugs and stuff like that, using weapons, or sometimes even climbing up the ladder. We have
mm,
this kind of gang and do this and this and whatever. So
mm,
when you call out a gang, like what make you think this is a gang and not just misguided young people,
mm,
or young people who have made wrong judgments in this manner. So having that conversation is much more time consuming and it's harder.
mm,
But I think
mm,
they're the conversations that we need to have at
mm,
times. Similar to when you say, some people just get pregnant to get government money or something.
mm,
And just think like, how much allowance do you have for having a child?
mm,
You know, support for the child.
mm,
Would you make a living out of that? Would a mother who loved the child do that? Like, I'm
mm,
just trying to tease it out. And eventually you'll find out that probably that's not the primary cause for having for being a single mother. And
mm,
single mothers will not be called out. So
mm.
it's a hard conversation to have, but sometimes, most of the time, it's a conversation that we need to have
And it's interesting because I'm thinking
at the
back in
personal level.
Broome. Yeah, so a person, if you see any kind of or hear any kind of um, prejudice, I think it's important to call it out. And it reminds me of in Broome, particularly on social media, you would see someone post on the community notice board, three Aboriginal children walking down the street, be careful, lock up your doors, and so forth. And the mere act of walking, Aboriginal children walking down the street was seen as a sufficient enough reason for people to be alarmed and to post updates to the community, So that's racial profiling,
Mm.
So I feel like if you see or hear any of these kind of incidents, it's your responsibility to engage that person, unpack their assumptions, as you say, and hopefully educate them and encourage them to reflect on the assumptions they're making. Would that be a good way of summarizing it?
Absolutely correct. And I think yeah, absolutely correct. Because otherwise, how do we counter that?
Mm,
But if it's blatant, of course, you gotta stand up for the rights and use the remedies that are out there to
mm,
pursue the charge, if there is a charge.
mm, mm,
I know one person who talked about particular young people probably a few years ago here in Broome, and he was working for the government department and put his name out there, and people said, "Oh, we know that this guy is working in the government department, health sector, and he's working with our people, so we don't trust him
mm,
working with us while he has these opinions." And
mm.
I think his employment was terminated, or he was moved
That's
away
right.
from here.
Yeah, it was
So
someone at the
when it
hospital
becomes
who.
like a really strong, blatant kind of acts
Mm.
of discrimination, then there are remedies out there
Yeah,
to
so
pursue.
I think I remember the time it was someone from the hospital posting a complaint about Aboriginal children, and everyone worked out where he worked, and he ended up losing his job. So yeah, like if people are blatantly, openly discriminatory, you can approach the Human Rights Equal Opportunity Commission and so forth. But
Mm.
yeah, Is there anything else that you would recommend if we want to be good allies to migrant refugee communities that we need to keep in mind? And when we're working with clients, how do we, do you have any parting advice?
I think I did not touch much significantly on the reflective practice in my previous when you mentioned it, and we moved on from that. So I'll go back to that and then probably say a parting word. Reflective practice. Reflective practice is absolutely important. At the time when I was working in that, when I had a stint in the mental health sector, it was very important for me to have those journals. I had a journal that I used to write.
Journal, yep.
Yeah, so journaling is very important. And there's so many things that I was writing, and I could see these assumptions maybe from a housing officer towards a family or something like that. And then you start to break it down and you just think like, that was an assumption that this person could not read a form, for example, and they are filling in a form for him without seeking consent. Like, would they do that to a 50-something-year-old person of European background and just say that I'll fill out the form for you, instead of saying, would you want take this and fill it out, and we can work together on this one. So there's some kind of, when I was doing those reflective practice, those kind of things that they're small, but you noticed, they help you to understand better and how to counter that better in the future. So journaling was very important. Another way that I was lucky was having a supervisor at the time, and it was an external supervisor from a health organization somewhere. And just every second week, I think it was, just about an hour, going sit there in their office and talking to them. And because they were trained in that, so it was sort of like counseling, support, because working in that field sometimes can be overwhelming in terms of because people are intense and the issues are intense as well. So having that time to do supervision, which I think for social workers is an ethical obligation, it is one form of reflective practice that is, is so well, if you're not the writing person and you're a talkative person, that is there as well. But for people like myself who likes sometimes to write, I used to use different kind of models, but I thought the simplest one was a Gibbs model.
Oh yeah, we teach that.
So Gibbs model was because it was very easy to follow, because there are other models that kind of depends on the field that you're working in. Can be challenging to other field and stuff like that. So Gibbs was a very easy to do for me. And yeah, so journaling using Gibbs, my supervision out there absolutely was wonderful. And sometimes even in the team meetings, I would go out there, because we used to have case review meetings, and I would use the same model that they use out there to describe the person that we're working with, and whatever services that were provided, and so that the psychiatrist would have a better understanding of what happens in the other side, because the psychiatrist would use the medical model, which is about this kind of medication nocte, or this kind of medication during the day and stuff like that, of this nature, of that nature. So would say, oh, this is what has happened, and so they can have that social aspects of where the
Mm,
person is,
mm,
and I think that was very important. Everything that we're doing in that way, of course, you reflect on yourself and you reflect on the people that you work with at the same time.
mhm,
So it's a two-way thing.
mm,
On a selfish note, it's about you being grounded,
mm.
and yeah, not a selfish, but on the personal level, it's about the practice helps in making me or you grounded and really think objectively because so much is going on. Having that little time of writing just a few lines a day, 120 words, that's a little paragraph. It
Mm.
doesn't take much in terms,
It
but
does pay
once
off.
it's
Yeah.
written down, it is true. Because once you
Mhm,
write it down, it's true. Once it's a fleeting thought, it's a fleeting thought and you can go back to it and the details will not be there after 5 days.
mm.
So 120 words, I know it's easier said than done to sit down and write 120 or 125 a paragraph, and that is concise and having all the details, but it's a good practice.
Very much so. Yeah, we love reflective journaling. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for us, Joe?
Um, well, wisdom. All right. I'm not sure about wisdom, but yeah, let's keep on learning. Learn about other people. Just like I'm trying to buy tap dancing shoes at the moment and going to that practicing tap dancing. But of course,
Mm,
I should have started it when I was 4 years old or something. But it's something that some things you just learn every day. Even though I'm a good guitar, I mean, somebody's a good guitarist.
mhm,
There's no harm in learning a different progression or
mm,
scale or something like that that you've never had somebody playing that way. Like you put E in a jazz piece, like that is a blasphemy. But
mm,
somebody can incorporate it and everybody will just, what is the new learning every day?
mm,
And sometimes it works. So
mm.
keep on learning and keep on observing, be open. Um, yeah,
Very
enjoy
wise
the
words.
journey.
Yeah, enjoy it too. That's a big one. So thank you so much for your time today, Joe Tungaraza. Learn a lot from you. I really appreciate all your wise words, and I'm sure our students will too. So I'll stop the recording now and say have a wonderful day.
Thank you.